Okay, Fano, welcome. Module number 2. Here we go. Unlock your potential. Hopefully you can remember some of the key things from number 1. And for us, those are the formulas around growth and contribution. Always remembering you're going through these 2 phases. We're either learning, growing, taking on more information, and then the real key to improve your potential is to give to others, upskill others, pass that information on. If we've got all our potential, though, what's stopping us is there's interference, and this is classified as emotional interference, and the goal here in this whole program is to remove that interference so your full potential can be realized. Now, similar 3 secrets for this module. You know, we're going on a journey here, and if you're like myself, it could take 14 years to try and discover ways to really reach your potential, read many books, go to many seminars. But the goal of this and a few other programs is to, put a system in place for you to just follow. So that's what this is. You just got to follow the leader. Change, though, is not going to be easy, because whenever you try to change something, it's wanting to go back to its original form, because that's what it's comfortable with. But you have to change, otherwise you're going to get the same results you've always got. So if you're feeling uncomfortable, if it's feeling different, then that's a good sign. The key also, though, with that is, because it's uncomfortable, it's like going in the boxing ring with your other self every day, because the other self wants to go, no, let's go. We want to stay here. We want to do what we're comfortable with. The new self has to go in and fight daily for the new you. Okay. All right, so we'll remove this. The formula here is just something to remind us that what we're trying to do is remove interference. We all have the ability to achieve things we want to achieve, but something is preventing us from achieving that. Okay. So where does this interference come from? Relationships, environments, and yourself. In this module, we're going to cover around relationships, which broken into 2 parts: broken agreements and self-expression. Now, when I was doing some research for a speech or a presentation I was doing to parents around unlocking their kids' potential, one of the qualities I really wanted to get across to them was this principle of delayed gratification. And having delayed gratification meant that you could obviously put things off for later. And I remember a lecturer at uni talking about this experiment called the marshmallow test, and 600 kids were put through this test, and basically you had to have a marshmallow in front of these young kids, and you said, look, if you don't, you can have that 1 marshmallow now, or you can wait 15 minutes and you can get 2. And you're like, okay, I can see how this tests delayed gratification. Now, out of those 600, only 1/3 were able to display delayed gratification. And what they then did was revisited all of the participants later when they're like mid-30s, and what they discovered is those that were able to demonstrate delayed gratification had better jobs and a better situation in wealth and well-being. So being able to demonstrate delayed gratification had a massive impact on the rest of their life over time. And what I discovered next was pretty powerful. What they said was those that weren't able to delay gratification could have been due to the fact that they had experienced broken promises. So these are young kids. If they had experienced broken promises, they were less likely to be able to display delayed gratification. And as I read that, I was like, that makes a lot of sense. You got a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old sitting across the table, and I'm saying they're going to get 2 marshmallows in 15 minutes. but they've had a series of broken promises. They're not going to believe a word I say, and they're going to grab that marshmallow because it's right there, it's right now. And I was like, that makes a hell of a lot of sense, because personally I went through a situation with my daughter, and it was quite freaky because it was similar times I did that research. And this situation was, we're at my mother-in-law's and my daughter woke up and I was still in bed, and all I could hear was this crying and tantruming. And those who are parents, or those who see other parents, there's that concept that, the kids, and especially daughters, have their father wrapped around their finger. And I was no different. She would be fine in the room when I'm away, and as soon as I walk in, she'd play up, tantrum, on cue. And this was no different. So she was throwing this tantrum about a scooter that was wrapped up in the back of the room, which was for her cousin's birthday in a few weeks. And she's starting to let loose. Now, I'd just done some research and learned in a program that there's a core issue down here to every behaviour that's on the surface. The behaviour is just the surface, but there's a core issue. And instead of putting her in the quiet corner, which we'd usually do, or put her in the room, I started to just sit down next to her and try and console her and get her to calm down, and then ask her, what is it? Why do you want the scooter now? And she just said, because I want it now. And I just kept asking, look, you can tell me why you want it now. And she's tantruming at this part. And then after a while, she stopped and she looked up at me and she said, because you didn't fix my scooter. And I was a bit taken back. It took me back 6 months earlier when her scooter was broken, and I said I would fix it. And then after school, when she came back, I hadn't fixed it. And to try and get her to forget about it, I said, look, we'll go to the pools because your mate's waiting there for you. Thinking that would make her forget about the scooter. Well, it didn't. And as soon as I realised I didn't keep my word at that point, that hurt quite a bit, because I wanted to be the dad who always kept his word. But when I look back at that situation, I thought, well, I remember that day thinking I got so carried away with work and I got called out. I was like, it's not my fault. It's not my fault that I didn't fix it. Work got in the way. Well, that doesn't matter to them. I said I would fix it and I didn't. And as soon as I said that, all the other times that I said things and it didn't happen started popping up in my head. It was like this house of cards that collapsed. Other examples where she was desperate to go to the playground, and I'd say, yeah, okay, we'll go to the playground. But after the supermarket, we'll go do the shopping first. And we'll go to the shopping, we'd come out of the supermarket and it'd be raining. So we'd load up the things in the car. She'd be going, we go to the park now? I said, Tyler, it's raining out, so we can't go out there. Tantrum. She doesn't care about the weather, doesn't care about what is happening out there. I said we go to the park, and I didn't go. And other times where, during the day, just to get them off your back, you say yes. She'd be wanting to go to a friend's house. I said, look, yeah, we'll go. And then we end up doing something else, and I'd just be putting her down to bed, 8 o'clock at night, wrapping up. She said, but Papa, you said we'd go to Kapua's house. And I'm like, mate, it's dark. Like, they don't get that. It doesn't register. What registers is what you said and what you did. And so those broken agreements can cause, emotional interference. And what we want you to consider here is not just the agreements that are said, but the agreements that are consensus in your will for you. So, an example is, for some, is you don't sleep with other people's partners. It's a consensus. It's not a said agreement. It's just a bit of a consensus. You don't kill anyone else. So anytime these things are broken in your world, it starts to cause, or in other people's world, it starts to cause emotional interference. Now, that can be the negative side of the relationship, of a relationship. But this quote here sums it up in terms of we live in our mind, and these obstacles and barriers in our mind, which can cause interference. And the other part of relationships that can cause interference is where we have this lack of self-expression. So I don't express myself the same way that I express when I'm around my friends and my bosses, for example. So why is that? I had a real lack of self-expression. I had a boss who was very dictatorial. No one else, didn't take anyone else's point of view, didn't let a lot of people talk at meetings. And so you'd rock up and you'd sit there and you'd be quite, you wouldn't, yep. But you'd leave the meeting wishing you had said this, not agreeing with that. So that lack of self-expression is causing interference. The other part of lack of self-expression is I couldn't tell my uncle how much he meant to me. He was an All Black, and where we grew up, all his All Black photos were on our wall in the family room. And, we didn't look at them all day just staring there, but we knew they were there. And when visitors came, they would always go, oh, who's this? Who's in the All Blacks? Oh, that's Uncle Ken. Every day. You'd walk into this room every day growing up. And I thoroughly believe that by having those photos on the wall, just having that there consciously, most days, every day, subconsciously gave us the belief that we could do something in rugby, and you can actually do anything. So I rang him up, 32 years of agency a day. That was awesome. Thank you for having your photos on the wall. This is what I believe it helped with. So why take 32 years to express those things? So it could be a negative thing around broken agreements, or it could be that even a positive thing, like why can't you tell people how you feel? So have a look at your parts of your life. Have a look around family, work, friends, or your partner even. Where have you broken some agreements, or where have others broken agreements with you? And where maybe aren't you able to be fully expressive? Okay, and that's could be considered some areas of interference. So there's a little task this week. We're going to track down some relationships. You pick, but go again through the thoughts and feelings you're having about the person and the situation, and then what did that cause your behaviour to be? All right, and what story are you telling around that situation? So for me, I couldn't ring my uncle to ask him if he needed any help. This is another scenario where he's in a position where he needs some help, but I didn't ring him. He's done a lot for us, but the story I was making up in my head was, he might be ashamed if his nephew rang him. He might be ashamed if his nephew knew about the situation he's in. No, I'll leave that for the older generation to deal with rather than get involved. So what is the story you're telling yourself around the situation and the person that's involved? And to break through, right, to have some progress in your other area of life, whatever your goal and aspirations are, let's say it's on the rugby field, which was for me, consider that by having breakthroughs in this aspect of your life, the relationships, that you will then be able to have a breakthrough in the other areas of your life. So to do this, you've got to take 100%. Just think that whether it's a good or a bad situation, a good or a bad relationship, and if you're thinking the story you're telling is it's all their fault, it's completely the other person's fault, well, you need to acknowledge that that's the story you're telling, but take 100% responsibility. We're not 5 years old anymore. You're not like my daughter was, throwing her tantrum. we're actually able to control ourselves a bit better than that. And so take 100% responsibility. If you want to break through in the other areas of your life, you need to break through in this. So take it on. And for some, this might be a bit fearful. For me, the thought of ringing my uncle and telling him what it was around his All Blacks photos, this is for me. For others, you guys might think this is bloody stupid. But for me, it was like climbing Mount Everest. It was very fearful, right? Just weird fearful. Like now I look back on it, I was like, what the heck? But our family was very private like that. It still is very private. And your fears might be totally different, but some might be feeling fear. So I encourage you to do this activity if you feel that real sense of fear. And this is Tim Ferriss. He's developed this process called fear setting. And basically you've got to pick it as what you're fearful of happening. So let's just say, oh, look, I'm fearful that if I talk to my partner that around this, whatever topic is, she might leave me. Okay, so you define what happens, what could happen if you talk about whatever topic it is. She could leave. That could be one thing. Number 2, she could get angry. Number 3, she could hit me. Number 4, she could be silent, not talk for 4 weeks. Whatever, list it all down. Then in the second column, he talks about prevention. What could you do, even if it's just to prevent it a little bit? You might not have to prevent the whole thing from happening, but just prevent her from leaving just a little bit. What could you do? Okay, I could have a chocolate cake waiting when I tell her, or some wine, I could have a friend around when I talk to her about it, because maybe she won't react. I don't know. Think of ideas to prevent, even if it's just preventing it from happening by 5%. And then the third column is around what can you do to repair things. And it is a real fascinating exercise when you delve down into it. In some instances, I know when my darling and I did this about me leaving work and we were worried about income and paying bills and stuff. The thing that we were most scared of is really how we were going to feed ourselves. And so we looked at all the things we could do to prevent and repair and things like that. And we then looked at our situation and well, actually, it's not going to be that bad. So fear setting, crack into that. Now, when I say you're going to address and take 100% responsibility for any broken agreements, areas where you don't have self-expression, this means you're going to have to talk to those people. Talk to that person and address it. Now, what might you say? These are some options. You ring up and say, why are you ringing? Look, Uncle Ken, I'm ringing because I want to tell you how much of an impact it had on my life. Or I'm ringing, boss, because, I'm unhappy about the way you're conducting meetings. Okay, so how have you been feeling? Well, boss, during these meetings I've felt intimidated, fearful, not valued, blah, blah, blah. What I would really like is an opportunity to feel as part of a team. What I would really like is us to work together so that we can overcome our problems as a team. So what's your vision, for that relationship? And asking the question then, would you be open to this? And the key in all of this, and probably fits in where you share your vision for the relationship, or maybe how you've been feeling, is you got to leave the person you're speaking to touched, moved, or inspired. Now, for my uncle's situation, that was quite easy. He actually broke down a little bit in tears. But for the boss, who's maybe a bit intimidating, how are you going to make him feel touched, moved, and inspired? All I said was, we look up to you as a leader. We want to support you as a leader, and we see you as the person to drive this team. And we would really like to do that, feeling involved, an involved team member. And we would have nothing, we'd be happy. We would be very happy to follow you in our mission over the next year. Okay, this is not a bitching session. This is not a moaning session. This is a process to break through that emotional interference, but leaving them touched, moved, and inspired is crucial. All right, now why do we even want to address interference? Why is this interference for some even an issue? Well, you're either on this little course or this journey in this program because you want to achieve some things you haven't achieved yet. You want to reach your potential, and for some of us, by reaching our potential, we think and we feel there's this fulfillment and happiness. We're maybe feeling a little bit unhappy about our situation, and we think, all right, by doing this, by achieving our potential, we're going to get to this place of fulfillment and happiness. So I want to share with you a little story that might, hopefully, will give you a different view on how you can get to this place. And I was on a landmark forum earlier in the year, and by day 3, we've been sitting in this room and learning a whole lot of behavioral concepts and some NLP techniques, tools, and we got to this part here, and he said, look, there's 3 things that we think about or that we do in life to try and get to this point of fulfillment. And he said, first thing is we want. We go around, and I wanted time and money. Why do we want time and money? Everyone asks that. Why do you want that? So, well, I can get the things I promised my darling, really. A nice house, be able to go on holiday when we want, and exactly, have time and money, drive the cars you want. So the second thing, so wanting was in one column, and the middle column was then we go and do things. So we go and do things to get the things we want. And so first port of call for me was rugby. To get the time and money and the things that we desired, I thought rugby would be the way to do it. Then when we stopped playing rugby, we went into network marketing. It was all about leveraging your time, personal development, helping others. That didn't quite work. Rugby didn't quite work. I finished because of injury. Network marketing didn't quite work for me. Then we went into real estate investing, and I wasn't really passionate about that, and we ended up in a project that still cost us money. Then we thought, let's go overseas to Scotland rugby. Let's earn the pound, come back with a bit. But secretly, I was hoping we'd meet this millionaire businessman that was going to mentor us into business. Why was I doing all these things? Because I thought I was trying to get the things we wanted. After every kind of failed venture, we'd sit back with my darling and go, okay, well, what is it? What is it that you want? What is it that we want? Oh, the house. I want to be able to do things when I want. Okay, and so when the opportunity came up to work at New Zealand Rugby, I thought, yeah, this is it. This is it, working at a national organisation. Of course, we'll get some money. And then when the kids came along, well, we didn't quite get enough money left over, So we kept doing these things round and round. And as the guy was talking about these 2 columns, wanting and doing, he then talked about, go back a step. So then, when I was at New Zealand Rugby, I wasn't achieving the things I wanted, time or money. We had a truck, but it wasn't ours, so that could go at any point. After our first restructure, I realised, okay, I'm at the mercy of the new boss. Anyone who comes in can just get rid of us. Then I thought, okay, maybe it's not about the money. Maybe it's just about the time. Maybe reaching happiness and fulfillment is just about the time. And so we moved home to a Portuguese. Dropped it all, dropped the salary by half, dropped the package by half, got rid of the truck, got rid of the gears, come back home to spend time with mum and dad, live next door, kids can hang out. We live by the beach, all of that stuff. Well, 3 months in, I realised that wasn't the case. There was no fulfillment or happiness there either. And I was like, man, I was stuck. Anyway, in the Landmark Forum, what he talked about is the first 2 columns, wanting and doing, is what we rotate between for the majority of our life. And it's the third column that really counts. And the third column's being. And at first I didn't understand that. I was like, being. But then once we started going through addressing some of these areas that was interference, addressing, areas of loss of self-expression or areas of broken agreements, the weight that came off the shoulders was amazing. It was as if I'd been carrying that weight for a long, long time, and so it just lifted off. I felt freer. It brought a new word to freedom. And so being, for me, then became, well, how are you actually being towards others in the relationships you're in? Are you keeping agreements? Are you keeping promises? Are you able to be expressive? The expressive you want to be when you're around anyone, not just certain people, but anyone. And that's being, isn't it? And emotional interference keeps you from being. And when you go through some of this process, you will start to feel the benefits of removing that interference, and you will feel the experience of being. And for me, it was peaceful, it was contentment, it was fulfilling. And so that's the space we want you to get to. So what is the dream you? You're going to have a chance to just go, well, what is it? Not what you want and what you want to do. What about you? What person do you want to be? How are you going to communicate? What are your traits and values? Principles that you live by? What is important to you is the result that we're looking to achieve. So here's some tasks for this week. Work your way through. And again, remember, it's about removing that interference. And at times where it might be fearful, remember this quote. On the other side of fear is everything that you want. So, wish you all the best. Get stuck in. And look forward to catching up next week. JT out.